What's going on, Restoration Dominators? Rico Garcia here once again with another exciting episode. And I hope that you're buckled in because this is going to be one hell of a good episode. Today, we are joined by Benjamin Ricciardi, which is the founder of Ironclad Restoration Marketing. Perhaps you are familiar with the name because Ironclad Restoration Marketing has been making quite a bit of a splash within the restoration industry. And Benjamin Ricciardi is such an amazing individual. We get to talk about one of my favorite and most passionate topics out there, which is marketing and positioning you as a company, you as an individual, and everything that you should need to know when looking to either hire a marketing company or bringing an in-house marketing team, or the things that you as a business owner really need to take ownership of and what you need to learn about. Benjamin Ricciardi is also the author of the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors. Make sure that you check that out. There's going to be a link in the video description below, as well as in the show notes if you're just simply listening to the podcast. So we have tons of fun on this particular episode. We talk about the mindset that's needed for business owners in the restoration game and what they need to understand in order to really stand out from the rest of the competition, the pros and cons of using a restoration, or should I say a marketing company, and the pros and cons of doing marketing yourself. So the beauty about this episode, in my opinion, is that both Ben and I have slightly different opinions when it comes down to our overall approach. I'm always of the opinion that you as a business owner, you are the marketer and you are the salesperson. And then the services that you provide just so happen to be just that. It's the service that you provide after you've done the marketing, after you've done the selling. So for me, my approach has always been you as a business owner or your team need to be in-house. They need to understand the game. They need to understand the KPIs. They need to understand the metrics. So that way you can go ahead and beat out your competition. Now, obviously, that's where, my courses come in, our training come in, our coaching come in, things of that nature. Now, Ben is on the opposite spectrum. He owns an agency, right? And he deals with tons and tons of restoration contractors. So what his deal is he's selling his services. And the beauty about it is that even though we have different approaches, the common denominator is exactly the same. It's all about gaining the right information at the right time so that you, the business owner, can go ahead and make the right decisions that need to be made so that you can maximize your ROI and get more clients, expand your business. So I think that this is going to be a really useful discussion because you get to kind of peek behind both sets of curtains, whether it's the do it yourself or do it in-house, or whether or not you want to go with a marketing company and the benefits to both. It was a really good, open and a genuine discussion with two marketing guys. So I hope that you enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Restoration Domination Podcast, where you learn actionable advice that moves the needle and helps service-based businesses dominate. Here's your host, Rico Garcia Jr.
Ben, what is going on, brother? Welcome to the show. Are you ready to help us dominate?
Oh, you already know, Rico. What's going on?
Nothing much. Hey, do me a favor for those that are listening for the first time or that maybe aren't familiar with the name and what you do, fill in some of the gaps on the intro. Let everybody know who you are and exactly how you're helping the industry.
Yeah, man. My name is Ben Ricciardi. I am the CEO, founder of Ironclad Restoration Marketing. We are a full-service digital marketing agency that specializes in helping restoration contractors only. So we handle everything from website design, SEO, Google Business Profile work, everything in between when it comes to getting more leads and sales for your business. I'm an author. I'm a dad, and I'm a steward in the community, run a nonprofit down here in South Florida. So, the big theme of everything is really just love helping people out.
Awesome, dude. So for just full disclosure to the audience and to all of you restoration dominators out there, Ben and I spoke, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and we thought that it would be an extremely interesting episode for us to get together because we have very similar views, but yet very opposite views, at least on the public front, I would say. I think that, at the core, we agree with a lot. We just have different offerings, right? So Ben, obviously, founder of Ironclad Restoration, marketing. So marketing firm, his product, right, for the most part is, hey, you're providing the digital marketing services, right? My public offering is always like, screw the marketing companies, like get away from the marketing companies, learn marketing yourself, right? Like that's been my thing. And, it was funny because I was expecting a whole lot more pushback from Ben, but yet, there's this happy medium because I think that both of us understand the value of depending on where your business is at and when you should take those steps, right? So for me, I think that this is going to be a really interesting episode. I think that for all of you out there that are watching and that are listening, and you have either gone with other digital marketing agencies, you probably have a bad taste in your mouth, or you've heard other episodes where I very blatantly have said, hey, take control of your own marketing because you're not in the restoration business. You're in the sales business and in the marketing business. Like that's what you are. I think that this is going to be a really interesting debate. And then we are going to get not too deep into the weeds, but I do want to go ahead and make sure that we cover some good, important best practices that everybody could walk away with today that they can do to improve their digital footprint and get those additional phone calls. So let's get right into it, man. Let's get into the very first question, which is, what do you think, looking at the landscape of the restoration arena, what do you think is what restoration companies are doing right when it comes to digital marketing? And what do you think they're doing ridiculously wrong?
Yeah, sure. That's a really, really good question because it's so multifaceted. So from what we see, we talk to guys a lot. We've been in this space for quite a few years. What we're seeing is that what they're doing right is they're kind of checking that box, right? So everybody knows for the most part you need a website. So whether or not they're doing it the right way is another question. Everybody knows to some extent that SEO, or they feel that SEO has some value. They need to be running ads. They're buying leads. And what we preach here is an omnichannel approach. So not putting all your eggs in one basket. In a quick backtrack, Facebook went down not that long ago, right? So if you're a guy that's been out there just strictly throwing up Facebook ads and chasing storms, you were shit out of luck for a couple days, right? So we preach this omnichannel approach. Oh yeah, I mean, again, if that's your only source of getting leads, like you're done for a day. And we all know in this industry that time is money. So what they're doing right is I think that people have a general understanding of what it is that they need. What they're doing wrong is more prevalent. So the biggest things that we see is lack of consistency, lack of education in what the services actually are. So what ends up happening is when everybody, the collective says, hey, you need to be running SEO, you need to have pay-per-click, you need to be buying leads, you need to have a website, XYZ. Well, they're missing all those little minor details that go in between, right? They don't understand what SEO is. They're just checking that box. And just like anything in life, if you're just kind of sticking your head in the sand and you're checking a box, you're probably not going to be happy with the results that you get or lack of results in that case. The other big thing is the consistency part. So as you well know, pay-per-click, SEO, and websites and Google Business Profile work, all of that stuff takes a lot of optimization. It's a very intimate process. So for a lot of restoration contractors, they look at digital marketing agencies as, hey, I'm paying you for this service. And they need to kind of rewind that a little bit and say, we're paying you for a partnership to help me get more leads for my business so I can grow the right way.
And part of that, obviously, and this is where I believe that the self-education is so important, right? Like, and again, I very publicly, and now here's the awkward part. Like, I own an agency. Like the way that I got into the restoration business was because I have an agency. That's how we got into the restoration game, right? So a lot of the things that I would recommend to clients at the time right? I started implementing for myself, and yes, we got certain amazing results on certain fronts, but then others that, really just, I realized were vanity metrics. They weren't really moving the needle. I couldn't make those deposits. They weren't turning into hard physical cash, right? So all of a sudden, what you realize is that as the business owner, all of a sudden, what may have been a cookie cutter approach doesn't necessarily translate into real money. So you have to have a basic understanding of what these metrics look like. So, starting there, I think, is so important. Understanding, saying, hey, this is a partnership. What we're doing is we're buying data at the very beginning. Like, nobody understands why you need to buy data, why you need to optimize. They're just like, oh, I'm paying you X amount of dollars a month. We would just want to go ahead and get leads, right? And that's the end of it. But something that I think is really interesting that you said is checking the box. And I think that a lot of us fall into, oh, well, we have to be on TikTok. We have to be on Instagram. We have to be on LinkedIn. We have to do this. We have to do that. And the problem is that you're everywhere, but you're nowhere, right? Because you're nowhere consistently. You're not providing enough value. And you haven't even gotten clear on who your avatar is, right? You haven't gotten clear on who you're actually pitching to, who is your ideal customer. So an exercise that I've gone through quite a bit, and actually I have it on my course as a free resource, is just getting clear on your avatar, which is most restoration business owners, when you ask them hey, what kind of client do you want? What do they say? Anybody with a home who has a water issue.
Property damage.
You're like, well, what kind of property damage? Are you talking about residential, commercial, condos? Who's making the buying decisions, right? So how do you break it down? From an agency standpoint today, and you're making recommendations to a customer, right? To a restoration company. What's your initial approach? What do you look at first and say, okay, this is what your initial steps should be for you to go ahead and lay a good foundation as far as digital marketing is concerned?
Yeah, no. Well, first things first, and I guess this is going to lend a testament to what you've been preaching. And the first thing we do is qualify them, right? Mom and pops or a guy that works for somebody that's trying to break out and do his own stuff may not be a good fit for us because we're not trying to sell our service. I want to be very clear with that. We're not sales, and we're gonna get you, and we're gonna sell you, and we're gonna get your foot in the door, and we're just gonna try to give somebody anything. We really need to make sure that it's first we're gonna be effective. And what that ends up boiling down to is dollars and cents, right? So if you don't have a feasible marketing budget to break into your, service area, then that's the first conversation we're going to have. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to help you, give you the building blocks to get yourself there. We're going to help you determine, your lifetime value of a client. We're going to help you determine things like that to kind of make sense as to when you need to be pulling the trigger on certain different marketing modalities, right? So you may not have the budget to just go full steam, but there is also a breaking point to where you're really not doing nothing, right? Your budget is really just throwing money. You might as well just burn the money, and you'd be better spent somewhere else, like direct mail, or just spend it buying leads and stuff like that. So one thing that we do is we qualify, right? And in that instance, and why I wrote this book, and it's basically, this is the guideline on how you can market your business from a digital marketing perspective based off of our experience in doing this stuff.
And the book, by the way, for those of you that are only listening and don't have the visual aspect, if you check in the show notes below in the podcast, there's going to be a link to the book, so you can go ahead and pick that up there, as well as in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever it is that you're consuming your content. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I forgot, it's the no BS guide or bullshit guide to internet marketing for restoration contractors. So, what we do to build, we have to make sure that the client understands what it is that they're getting. Education is step one for us. They need to understand. Our favorite clients have used agencies in the past. They have been burned even, and as crazy as that sounds, because there is an ambiguity that comes with this service. So we want to eliminate the box checkers, because if you're just checking a box, not only you're going to probably be a little bit of a pain as a client, but you're also not going to ever be happy with the results because you don't understand what those results look like. And you're stretching every penny just to check that box. And that's not always going to be the best way to go forward. So we need to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what your goal, make sure you have a clear understanding what the processes that are involved to attain that goal, right? Because everybody has goals, but what differentiates the people who win and accomplish those goals are the processes, right? So the football, everybody wants this going in for a job interview. They all are going for the same job. So if the goal was what actually got them the job, then, there wouldn't be very much need for the interview in the first place. So hopefully I answered your question, I guess. So we always try to make sure that they understand what it is that they want and what they need. And then they understand that this is a partnership, and they also have to be qualified, because I'm not going to take any money if it's not going to make me look good. I'm very competitive. And we have a culture in our company to make sure that we're delivering the best results. And we've learned from experience by taking on clients we knew may not have been super qualified. And even though we do a great job, they can't afford to do things for enough time to really let the things marinate and let that investment give them a return on their investment.
Right. And one of the things that I believe is extremely, extremely important, and as an agency owner, I know for a fact that you've experienced this, you've seen this time and time again. I know that I've seen it consistently. Most people walk in, they understand, again, they're trying to check a box. They're like, well, you need a website. You need to have a digital presence. So, and of course, the very first thing, because it sounds really sexy, and it is, right? Organic listings, spot 1, 2, 3, spot 1 or 2, 3 in the map pack or the map listings or the snack pack, whatever it is that you want to call it. I mean, look, that drives a tremendous amount of clicks, a tremendous amount of traffic. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Right. And long term, and this has been proven steady after steady, long term, the absolute best ROI that you can get, PPC versus, organic SEO, SEO wins every single time. Long term.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
The problem is, and this is where the big disconnect happens when someone is just filling in the box, which is why I'm consistently preaching. Stop for a second, educate yourself on how the process really works, and which we'll get a little bit more into that a little bit later. But like step number one is you see people walk into you, or maybe you're pitching someone because they know it's the right thing to do. They need to have a presence. But the first story that you hear is like, well, those guys didn't do anything. You ask them the following question. It's like, hey, well, when did you start the website? Oh yeah, they put the website up for me initially. All right, great. Yeah. Well, how long did you stick around with them? Oh, like 6 months, and I didn't get a single call. Right. So it's brand new domain. They had like zero understanding. Brand new domain. You have zero backlinks, right? Which is basically your votes of confidence from one website to another. You've got zero authority in the eyes of Google. Google doesn't know if you're a fly-by-night company. And then here you are as an amazing SEO agency, and you're putting your best foot forward. You're doing everything perfectly right. And all of a sudden, 6 months in, they're like, you know what? This is a scam. They just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Well, all of a sudden now they just wait another month, give it to they can give it to like their 5-year-old niece, and all of a sudden they start ranking. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, this other firm is amazing. No, you're finally reaping the reward of all the work that was put in, 6-7 months ago, right? How often does that happen?
No, it happens a lot, and that's why we've put a lot of stress. We've stressed a lot about qualifying, because and I'll put it in terms. I will put it in terms that contractors can understand a little bit more. It's almost like you get strangleheld, right? So you have these people who just say, hey, I need SEO. And we'll say, well, due to these latest algorithm changes, we really need to be working on your Google business profile. And you're mentioning that you want leads now. You should be running some pay-per-click. And they say, no. We just need to get a website up. Let's just do the bare minimum. And the qualification process becomes so important to stop that, because that's exactly what happens. Mm-hmm. I mean, 6 months is great. There's people that get a website. I mean, it's the dopest website we feel in team that we've ever built. We've got the content position. We're ready to rock and roll. They've declined doing the Google business profile. They don't want to do the extra citations. They don't want to take our recommendations, right? So they want all these leads and they want SEO. And then when we say, well, this is what it's going to take, they say, you know what? Let's back off. So like a contractor, it'd be like somebody paying you to do their floors and build their walls in their house, right? And then when you go in and say, okay, well, we're going to do the floors and we need to replace the baseboards, because once we put the new floors in, we're never going to be able to save these. And the guy goes, you know what? Don't do the baseboards. Let's save that cost off there. Let's shave this cost here and there. And then you give them a finished product and they're looking at it and say, this looks terrible. This is nothing what I thought it was going to be. And you say, well, guy, you didn't do the baseboards and you didn't let us paint. And of course, your floor looks really nice, So then they bring somebody else in to look at it and they're like, well, this guy, the last guy didn't put baseboards in, they didn't paint. And the other, the client says, yeah, I know. So again, it goes back to this qualification and understanding what it takes, in SEO. And for the guys out there, and this, if you look at your leads, like going to get the groceries that you need to eat, right? SEO is a garden. It still takes a investment in content, people, and tools, right? Pay-per-click's like going to the grocery store while you're waiting for that garden to grow. At some point, there's going to be a connect. It could be 6 months, could be a year, depending on the saturation of your market and how busy you are. And that little tip right there alleviates a lot of that misinformation that may be out there. And I get it. I try to sympathize with these guys out there that are contractors or paying this. They're hearing all the best stuff in the world, right? Everybody has that new shiny new objects and to get them leads and get their phone ringing right now. They may have some black hat type of styles, get their phone ringing a couple times, and then it tapers off at the end. So they're coming in with terribly mismanaged expectations, right? So the qualification is going to lead to managing expectations from the start, and that's where education comes in the most, and which is very important to me.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that I think is extremely important to note is, as a business owner, you want to meet people where they are. So there's a lot of talk in lots of groups and, amongst contractors where they're like, well, we don't do PPC. We don't do pay-per-click. We don't do Bing ads. We don't do Google ads. We will never do Home Advisor or Angie's or whatever it is, right? Well, that's great that you don't do that. But question is, how many of your potential customers are exclusively, let's say, going to Bing? And that's where they find their contractors at. How many of your customers are exclusively going to places like Home Advisor or going exclusively to Yelp? So you really do have to have this omnipresence. And it doesn't mean that you need to blow your entire budget on these platforms. What it means is you need to have some kind of a presence and play intelligently enough so that you can collect enough data so you can start making educated decisions, and then start creating the LTV, which is that lifetime value, which ironically just goes to show, like, you and I are marketing guys, because typically on one-on-one conversations with a lot of contractors, I'm like, hey, are you tracking your lifetime value of a client? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if you get Betty into your door today, and she's worth, let's say, a $10,000 contract, and 6 months from now, she sends you a referral, that goes to her LTV. Like, that is a direct correlation of, how much your average customer has the ability to go ahead and bring, right? Like, people don't really track that in a way to where it's measurable. So, like, the data is so important. Where do you see, when you're talking about like websites, right? Because websites is obviously like what most people think about. Sure. What do you see is something that contractors today can do to improve their website, like, right now?
I think we'll go back to something you mentioned towards the beginning, is understanding who your avatar, right? And Avatar, it's not the movie with the cool blue guys. Avatar is who your target client is, right? And you have to understand, and you have to put yourself in their shoes. So a website is just a window into your business, right? It's the new marketplace. It's the first impression people get. So a few things. One, you need to make sure that your website is speaking to who you're trying to sell to. Two, you need to make sure that your website is optimized for conversion. Meaning converting eyeballs into phone calls, right? And that's the name of the game. At the end of the day, all this data that we really hope that people are trying to understand, at the end of the day, it boils down to how many phone calls you're getting and how many jobs you're closing. So understanding how you need to position your website and understanding how crucial your website is into this whole process, that's important. So your conversion optimization, you want to have your most important information above the fold. And what I mean by above the fold is the old newspaper adage. For those guys that don't understand, the most important and most valuable ad space is above the folded part of the newspaper when it's laying on your front step, or in the old school newspaper machines that we used to use when we were kids. Making sure that they understand who you are, what you do, and why you do it, or maybe where you serve above the fold. All right, having a professionally done.
Right. So basically that would be the equivalent of today's digital age is you land on a website and you don't have to scroll.
Exactly.
What is displayed on the screen, that's what's considered above the fold. If you have to scroll, you are subfold.
Yes. Thank you for that. And that is 100% true. And the other thing that, just to take a step back from that too, is nowadays, there's a great majority of people who are using their phones to find websites. So you have to make sure you have a really nice device responsive website. You don't want them to scroll, right? There's a good chance that if you're doing SEO well and you have the website and you have all these things in place, that if somebody ends up on your website from a search engine, which is a very qualified lead, you don't want to make them do any work to get in touch with you, right? So click the call buttons are super important. The big three that I think, just to keep it simple, would be have a professional looking logo. Your brand is your business, right? 2, have a website, have the important information above the fold, and put a lot of emphasis on your mobile website. Make sure that it's very mobile friendly. You don't have to scroll to get in touch with you. Make sure you have phone numbers that are clickable to call, have a call to action, and display some of your USPs, your unique selling proposition, which may be Google reviews. It may be 24/7 emergency service, something that's going to make your business that's unique to you, that makes you the best choice for property damage. Now, the other reason that this is a lot of common sense stuff too, and the other reason besides Google switching to a mobile first indexing, and this is going to go directly to the mobile website, you got to think about how your target demographic is going to find you, right? If somebody we're in South Florida, so we get a hurricane and it wipes us out, right? We have no power, we have no internet, we have no nothing. Well, we're not going onto the computer. Obviously, we're not going to get on Google and find a property damage restoration. We're going to pull our phones out. And that's the easy one, right? So they're going to pull their phones out. They're going to look for property damage restoration near me, and they're going to end up on your website, hopefully. And if you have a good mobile site, they're going to click the button and call you. There's an immediate need there. And the other hand of that is, how do you find people, right? Most of the people around now with these computers in our hands, we are just using our cell phones. So you need to make sure that you have a very strong emphasis on your mobile site. So that would be like the main website thing. And then as far as getting the leads and getting the traffic, there's a different story.
And just to kind of back up, because I think that this is an important part, right? Well, it's like somebody's probably out there was like, how do I know that mine is mobile friendly? Like I did it on Wix like a few years ago. Yeah. Very cool. And I'm actually going to go ahead, for those of you that are listening, I'm actually going to drop a link where you can put in your website URL and it'll automatically tell you whether or not it is mobile friendly. And it'll also give you a score. And for those of you listening or watching, you just want to know what it is, search.google.com/test/mobile-friendly. That's the link. Check it out in the show notes as well as in the video description. And just popping your URL, you will be surprised. Even if you just optimized for mobile friendly, even as short as 12 months ago, how many errors are popping up on that? And there's so many ways for you to improve it. Sometimes the image sizes are too big. Sometimes the titles are off. And this, again, because it is a Google tool, development tool, it'll let you know, like based on their benchmarks, like what it's looking like. So that's a quick little resource for you guys to kind of tap into as well.
And that is real. I mean, that is how we test. That's how we look. And you got to remember, with the Google page speed insights and all that stuff, you're never going to be perfect. So let's just try to get something, get the basics in order, right? Get the conversion basics in order, get the mobile site. If you missed it and you don't want to check the link out, you can do something as simple as, while you're sitting in your truck at lunch break, look up your competitor in your area's website and look at on your phone, and then compare it to yours and see whose is easier to get in touch. Do they have the most important information without you scrolling? Do they have a click to call button? Is there a way to get in touch? Are they really selling their business in there? And that would be the kind of cheat to just kind of do it just real quick, to kind of have a little self-reflection on where you stand. Because the big thing we see is everybody knows somebody that knows somebody, right? So they want to check that box. Right. We got a website. Well, my uncle's real estate agent's nephew can build a website. He's an IT guy, and he builds this Wix website or something like that, like 6 years ago. And these guys are like, oh yeah, right. I got my logo. My son drew it on a napkin, and I had some online company on Fiverr just make my logo. Like, you can't just be a box checker. Every aspect and every detail of your digital brand is important to converting traffic, right? You can send SEO, you can have the best agency in the entire planet. You can have the best everything marketing wise. And if they go to a shitty website with an unprofessional logo, it's almost like you showing up to a job with a broken down old vehicle, no logos, no branding on your vehicle, no business cards, smoking a cigarette with your pants hanging around your ankle and a dirty shirt. Like, they're going to look at you and be like, nah, we're going with a Serve Pro. They had polos on, they were looking good. They had it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of that same thing. A lot of this stuff, you got to try to break it down into the most finite common sense examples for everybody. And that's huge. And we talk about it in the book. There's a part in there about mobile sites. And if understanding that 90-something% of people use a phone to find a product or services, that's not enough to get you to get a mobile site done. Now, Google has a mobile first indexing to get a site done. Like, what else do you need, right? So just check out your competitors, look at your website, take a real snapshot and be like, would I use this? Is it hard to get in touch? Does everything work?
Right. So here's a polarizing question. Can anybody do this?
Yeah.
Can anybody master the digital space? Because, and just to give you some context and give everybody out there some context as to why I've preached the fact that you need to, if you are a business owner who has turned a blind eye to, and I don't even want to say digital marketing anymore, just marketing in general. But for the context of this conversation, let's go digital, because digital, for some reason, really throws people off. Back in the 90s, you had to know HTML, you had to know CSS, you had to learn this. And when you were building a website on WordPress, all you would see is these little brackets and slashes, and that's how you would create your website. You did need a language skill, language coding skill, basically, in order for you to have a halfway decent website. Well, today, that no longer exists. Like, you've got most of even your WordPress sites, which again, most people hear the word WordPress, they're like, oh my God, that's crazy. Most of those are in fact drag and drop templates that you can use, and it's very, very easy to kind of manipulate. So the question then becomes, is this a skill that most people can learn, and should they learn how to go ahead and not only manipulate their content, but the sequence of importance as far as their marketing is concerned?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, the easy answer is yes. Anybody nowadays, with every bit of information you have at your fingertips, why not? Anybody can get a YouTube video and learn how to paint their house properly, or learn how to change the oil in their vehicle. What it really boils down to, and if you're studious like myself, I have a background in construction. I taught myself digital marketing. I took the classes, I watched the videos, I put into practice what I learned into real world situations, and I built an agency from that, right? So yeah, absolutely, you can and should learn some semblance of it. Websites, I mean, everything is so user friendly now. The devil's in the details when it comes to that, right? So we don't want perfect to be the enemy of getting something done. So it's exactly. A matter of the biggest thing it boils down to is the most finite resource that we have on this planet, and that's time. Do you have the time to master 5 separate jobs? Well, you probably have the time to burn the candle and then, burn the midnight oil and learn how to build a website and sign up for Google Analytics and get that analytics code on your website and figure out what the right keywords that you need to position on your website to be able to elicit those top level results on a search engine. Yes, sure, you can figure that out and consistently go there, but you got to think of it almost like plate spinning, right? So how many plates can you possibly spin with your business? Now, if you have the time, that finite resource, then absolutely you can do this, and you'd probably be really good at it because nobody knows your business as well as you, and nobody knows your service area and your clients as well as you should. So it is a double-edged sword, right? So you can do it. But a lot of times what we find is that people don't have time, or they check the box, they learn just enough to get something up there and they think that's it, and then they get a terrible taste in their mouth, and then they bounce around from agency to agency because they know enough to be dangerous, but they don't know the big picture about it.
Exactly. So, but typically, again, you said about double-edged sword, and then you also said during the qualification process is, do they have the financial wherewithal, right? Because again, it's easy to talk about the big companies, right? Like everybody's a big boy and everybody wants to piss in the tall weeds with the big dogs. But at the end of the day, not everybody starts off that way. Most people start off and it's just, they were a tech, now they're an owner. And typically at that phase, they usually have more time than they have money. Or as a general rule, if you're building your business properly, at some point you should have more money than you do time, right? So there's always this exchange that you can have. So a lot of the pushback that I hear from a lot of contractors, and part of this, mind you, is a really, in my opinion, I think it's a mindset issue where it's a limiting belief where they're like, hey, look, I'm an old dog. I don't want to learn any new tricks. Or, you know what? I'm too busy. I'm just going to go ahead and pay somebody to go ahead and do it. Yeah, that's cool. But like, at the end of the day, if you are a successful business owner or a successful, branch manager, and you're busy, granted, maybe you don't have the time to learn a brand new skill set, but what you do have, or what you may have, is you may have the financial wherewithal to now bring somebody on. And look, they may not necessarily have to be 100% the best SEO, person on the planet. They don't have to be the best pay-per-click media buyer on the planet. But now you have, and this is like my personal opinion, and this is where I think this exchange is going to be really valuable. My opinion is that even if, let's say that we have the ability to hire your company and you are 100% the absolute best media company on the planet, right? At the end of the day, you're still a business and you're selling You're taking a service and you're creating a product out of that service. Well, unfortunately, SEO and PPC is time intensive. It's an hourly type of gig. There's only X amount of man hours that you have. Well, you want to grow, you want to go ahead and expand your business. Well, how do you do that? Well, you need more clients in order to do so, just like any other business on the planet, right? So eventually what happens is that there's this exchange that makes sense for any digital marketing agency based on X amount of dollars. Or this business owner could say, hey, you know what? Why don't I hire somebody in-house, even if they're 25% of what the best digital marketing agency could be, at a rate of 40 hours a week with sheer concentration on my business, day in, day out. Media messages get turned around and created faster. If I have an idea while I'm taking a shower, by the time that I'm in my office, my crew's already working on that idea and I got speed to market. I am my only customer when it comes down to digital marketing. That's an approach that I personally think most businesses that are going to be wildly successful on the digital side, that's where I think they're going to end up. Why do you think so many companies are apprehensive to that? Do you think that it's just a fear factor? Like, why do you think less companies are doing that?
No, I mean, and that's a really valid point. So I guess, it started getting me thinking a little bit about that. So the biggest thing that you can think of, right? So if we're looking at the landscape and you mentioned bringing somebody that's, I'm assuming green, that really doesn't have experience, that you're going to train up and do that, right? So at some point you have to understand this work yourself to an expert status. One, to make sure that this person you're bringing in is actually doing something, just like you would an agency. You have to do your due diligence. But two, to be able to effectively create these processes in order to get your in-house marketing done. I think the apprehension for that is twofold, right? It's almost like starting a business and saying, well, I'm going to do water, fire, mold restoration, and you bring in these techs that you know nothing about their projects or work, and you just turn them loose. Right. Well, sometimes that's not going to work out so well in your favor. They may not be the best option. Right. Probably so most of the time. Just to put in perspective, so having somebody who is an expert, so you got to think about this. Digital marketing is multi-level, right? We talk about an omni-channel approach. You have multiple different jobs that you're doing. So when you're hiring an agency, the agency's filling 5 roles really within a company, right? You have content, Google business profile work, you have your SEO expert, you have a web developer, and all these different things. So finding that unicorn out there, or somebody that you can train up or will take the initiative and learn, is very rare. So the apprehension may come from that a little bit. And the other side of that is, when we talk about that finite resource of time, who's going to be that person that creates these processes in order to bring that person on and do it? Are you capable of doing it? 100%. You're dedicating the time and the energy and your 40 hours a week to have that. But man, as far as I can see, having that one person that could do all those jobs is so rare that if you could find that, I would pull them on right away. That's why we have web development department, we have an SEO department, pay-per-click stuff. We have people that do social. And that's the one thing too, just touching on that side, people that are paying digital marketing agencies to manage their social media. And I'm not talking about the ads, I'm talking about the day-to-day. We always push those companies to hire one person that's maybe, everybody's social media savvy these days. It's the signs of the time. Everybody has Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever the case may be. That's what we always tell, because we're counter to that. We used to offer it as a service, and it's too much of a time suck. That's where that 40-hour a week person could really be effective for your company, and you have to do a little bit of oversight, right? They have to understand they're speaking about your brand. They have to do the engagement, liking and following and sharing and talking to people, learning about the ads. I think that would be, if you're going to go that route, that would be the most absolutely necessary first step in creating your own in-house digital team, would be getting somebody to run your social media. Because a lot of times guys are just, hey, I want to throw money, we'll do our social media. And we're like, you can't even get a Google review. How do you expect, you to do the engagement, all the things that go within social media management? Because there's a lot of moving parts with this kind of stuff, right? So hopefully that answered your question. I try not to give a non-answer, but really, look, there's nothing I believe wholeheartedly.
Well, all of this is a non-answer, right? Like all of it is a non-answer, because we have to determine, like, hey, where is it? First of all, what headspace are you like, you got to understand, like, as a business owner, what's my headspace? What do I have the bandwidth for? Is this something that I'm willing to take on? What's the risk versus reward? Again, I am jaded because I have an understanding of it. I come from the digital marketing world, from the marketing world, and just so happen to have a digital marketing agency also. So I brought that knowledge base with me, right? So for me, me, okay, it's like, great. Look, none of this is rocket science. Like if you asked me to code right now, I couldn't code anything. Like all of this, like Google Analytics, like that, those are big words and it sounds crazy, but guess what? Google says, click here to copy code, put this here in header. Like it's literally with pictures. Most of these websites and or apps will tell you what the next step is. So really, it's not that complex. But that being said, just because it's not complex doesn't mean that you have the willingness to do it, or that maybe you don't have the desk space to put somebody in there. So you just really got to find what moves you, you know, and that's what the hard thing is. So switching gears real quick, if you had to pick one, what would you say is the most important outlet right now for a restoration business to market on? In other words, SEO and their general website. Should they focus a lot more initially on social? Should that be pay to play, pay per click advertising? What's your opinion
I think
on that?
it's the easy answer is it depends, right? You said it very eloquently. It depends on who you are, who you're looking to market to, right? So in general, the most important thing you can do obviously is have a website, right? And you should have some sort of search marketing strategy built within that. So I'm going to talk about the guys that are balling on a budget. They don't necessarily have the budget to spend $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 a month on pay-per-click ads, which unfortunately in the restoration industry, you got to have the money to spend. And you know this better than anybody. You got to have the money to spend to really be effective with these types of leads, because they get driven up depending on the seasonality. So the most important things you could do is have those three basics in order. And I guess I'm gonna stop decoupling SEO and Google Business Profile. And in November, December of last year, huge algorithm update. There was another one last May, and basically they're almost one and the same now, right? So if you want to rank organically, a really great way to do that is work on your Google Business Profile. Now the beauty of your Google Business Profile is it's free and it's not that hard to manage properly. Not only does Google give you as many resources as you could think of, but there's a lot of agencies out there like myself that put out content and value-based stuff to teach you how to do it and why you need to be doing it. So if you were going to focus on one thing, if you're the guy that you have a decent budget and you can get in, I would definitely make sure you have a website that's built to convert. First, I wouldn't do anything until you had that. It's like on pay-per-click having a landing page that's shitty, right? You're going to spend a bunch of money. People are going to go to it. They're not going to click on nothing, right? Because it's not, there's no UX, there's no user experience. It looks like crap. So have a website, have a claimed, managed, verified Google Business Profile. Make sure you're following all the good best practices. So you almost have to treat your Google Business Profile like a social media account nowadays, right? Google has the new feature for messaging. They have the new feature for posting. They have a new website that's built into it as well, that you can have a Google website for free. So make sure you're capitalizing.
Which you should.
You should.
Which you should, 100%, because it's a free resource by Google.
Right?
And guess what that is? It's a backlink.
It's a very powerful backlink, right? We talk about Google a lot, right? The other thing too to think about, and I've heard this on a couple of your other your other podcasts, is utilize video, right? So if you want to look and you really want to get serious about this stuff, make sure you're managing your Google Business Profile. Make sure you're uploading pictures from jobs. Their AI is able to look at these pictures of what they are, pull those keywords out, help you with your organic search strategy that you're doing, and it helps build your organic listings, helps you get up into maps rankings, but then start using video. Take it a step further. Do you know what the second largest search engine in the world is? YouTube. And guess who owns it? Google. And right, so YouTube. Guess who you're trying to rank with? So use videos, pull your phone out, talk about what it is, people need to look for when it comes to mold, talk about industry stuff, provide some value. So, to go back to your question, I guess I gave you the long answer for it. It really depends on who you are, where you're at within your business, the life of your business. Okay. If you're the ideal situation, you're going to be concentrating on making sure you have a very well-built converting website, following Google's guidelines, because now they have the new page speed insights. So site speed is a big part of it. So make sure your hosting's in order and you have the website solid. Make sure you have a search engine strategy, and make sure you're utilizing Google Business Profile, the most free, badass resource you can use for your business. And if you can afford it, pay-per-click, right? We talk about SEO being a garden, and you're cultivating the garden. You're going out every day and you're tilling, you're watering it, you're fertilizing it, you're chasing raccoons away, but you need to eat. You need to eat, and you need to go to the grocery store to get your vegetables until your garden grows, right? So at some point, and this is really dependent on, again, where you are in the life cycle of your business, at some point you could taper off the pay-per-click and do it as needed, right? i.e. storms coming. or something like that happening. And your organic is going to be bearing you fruit, and you still have to cultivate it. You still have to put that time, energy, the people, content, and tools into your garden. But that's really where you need to go. And you need to not look at things. This is the biggest struggle we have for guys out there. And I'm guilty of this myself. Your business, you want to get these leads into your business. And it's like, well, football teams, the way you win is you have the most points at the end of the game, right? But the game is 4 quarters long. So if you were playing football and all you did was stare at the scoreboard the entire 4 quarters, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. You need to make sure you're focusing on the processes,
right,
and then understanding what the long-term outcome of those processes is going to be. Because I guarantee you, if your goal is to get more leads and all you're doing every day and every hour is looking how many leads are coming in, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. But if you look at the macro, right, zoom out a little bit, and you're doing that 1% every day to get better, and you're hiring the right agencies, and you're asking the right questions, and you're learning yourself what to do, and you stop focusing on the goal and you're focusing on the processes, you're going to hit that goal 9 times out of 10, but you haven't looked at it at all until you've zoomed out 100%. A little bit, right? Mm-hmm.
And it's a commitment, right? It's a commitment of time. And it's commitment of money. Like, again, like people talk about, oh, well, organic, it's free. Well, no, like there's no such thing as free, because somebody's putting in some time, you're putting in effort. One thing that I did want to clarify, because again, I know that not everybody who's listening or not everybody who's watching, and I want to make sure that I always try to make sure that people get something that's real and actionable. You said how, Google's AI pulls out the keywords from like images and all of this stuff. Important note for everybody out there. If name your files, and name your files something intelligent before you upload it. Because again, that is part of what's, I guess, metadata that is encrypted into that file. So if you have a file for a picture and it's, file number 1234567.jpg, and you upload that to Google, well, Google thinks that it's 12345 JPEG, right? Like, it was like, okay, cool. But now if that same picture is, let's say, I don't know, water mitigation, Palm Beach. Okay, cool. Well, now Google's got that little reference point. Does that mean that you're going to rank? No. But if you do that consistently over 50 pictures, 100 pictures, 200 pictures consistently, and all of a sudden it's, let's say, Miami, it's West Palm, it's Lake Worth, it's Boynton, it's this, it's that. Well, all of a sudden now Google's starting to get a little bit of an idea of what your service area is, and all of this stuff matters. So really the devil's in the details when it comes down to all of this stuff, right? Because it's not about checking that box of like, oh, let's just upload pictures. No. It's what do you have to do in order to prepare that picture in order for it to be uploaded.
To guys out there that are listening to this, and if your head, you don't know, and we're still kind of, you have to just look at Google like a librarian, right? And if you walked into a library and you were the manager of the library and you handed them a stack of pictures and they were labeled just like you just mentioned, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're counting on this librarian to look at these pictures and be like, I'll go file these where I think they need to go, right? I see a picture, there's like a floor, a little bit of water on the floor, right. So maybe this is a flooring, or maybe it's just general construction, right? So if you look at Google like a librarian when it comes to your content specifically, they're taking that EXIF data. So they're taking where you took the picture. Their AI is going to scan what the picture's all about. And then if you name that file, water damage restoration job in X city, and then you're uploading that to your Google profile with a really cool caption that links back to your website that creates this other backlink. And then you go into your website and you throw that link to that latest Google post back in there. Man, Google loves that because you're keeping people on their platform. You're delivering the most relevant, valuable results to their user base. And this goes for every search engine. Google's the gold standard. They own 98% of search or something like that. So if you follow Google, there's a good chance that you're going to be good with Bing and Yahoo and all Ask Jeeves and Lycos and all those ones from the 90s, right? I don't even know if they're still around, but you just got to treat it like that and break it down to the most simple form, all right? And that's something you can control 100% in-house. So Enrico, you mentioned, hey, how do these guys do this stuff themselves? I mean, there's very actionable things that you can do right now to help position yourself better digitally. And if you're just doing the minimum, it's better than not doing anything at all, or just saying, you know what, screw this. I've had a bad experience. I'm not touching it. It doesn't work, because it does work.
100%. So I want to go ahead and lead with this. Most restoration companies are not exclusive to water mitigation, nor are they exclusive to mold or fire smoke or biohazard, or residential or commercial. Typically, they provide all of these services. So then the question becomes is how do you highlight all of these features, right, in a digestible way on your website to make that optimized to where you're still getting a call to action in. But before you answer that, let's just take a quick moment to thank our sponsors. Hey, Dominators, real quick, let me ask you a question. How would you like to increase productivity? How would you like faster claims resolution? And more importantly, how would you like to reduce litigation? Well, this is exactly what Impartial allows you to do. Impartial creates timely, accurate estimates for faster and fair claim settlement. Building upon Matterport's technology, the Impartial Scope tool extracts the relevant data embedded with pre-mitigation and post-mitigation scans and subsequently renders an exactimate or assimilability estimate that can be approved by a carrier without any hesitation. The magic here is that the software helps contractors generate mitigation and repair estimates for more rapid approval from insurance carriers while removing the burdensome administrative process. Each impartial estimate is produced with objective accuracy using immersive 3D imagery and precise physical and geospatial measurements. Impartial, in my opinion, is one of those tools that simply can go ahead and change your business. And with so many features such as impartial tags, timestamp matter tags, the ability to upload JPEG, PNG, ESX, and so much more. Impartial is that software that could genuinely change your business. Make sure that you check them out in the video description below or in the show notes and see for yourself. Hey, Dominators, real quick, let me ask you a question. Have policyholders struggled to come up with your money because it's held with the mortgage company? Or does the percentage of uncollected debt that you collected in 2021 exceed over 2.5%? Or even better, let me ask you this. Do you dread negotiating with your policyholder when it comes time to collect your final payment and deductible? So look, if you answered yes to any of these questions, then you need to check out Sureti. You see, Sureti is a third-party fund control company. And what they do is they ensure that you get paid faster and, more importantly, completely for the hard work that your crews are doing. Sureti relieves not only the policyholder, but you of tremendous administrative burden while ensuring the claims process and, more importantly, the proceeds flow via ACH to the rightful owner, you, the restorer. And here's the best part. For less than the average credit card fee, Sureti delivers on numerous fronts. So here's what I want you to do. If you want to learn more about how Sureti can help you, I want you to head on over to www.sureti.com/dominate and request a free demo today. Now listen, Restoration Domination listeners, just like you, are going to receive a really cool offer. And here it is. You're going to receive an exclusive offer, which includes free processing for the first insurance claims check and 3 months of free access within their network. Again, that's Sureti, SURETI.com/dominate. Photo documentation is possibly one of the most important aspects of what it is that we do in the restoration business. Not only so that the client knows exactly what's going on, but also so that you can prove your work to insurance companies. One of the best ways that I found to go ahead and document our projects is by using CompanyCam. CompanyCam is an amazing app. It has so many features, everything from timestamped and GPS located photos, individual project files, unlimited photo storage, in-app communication with your crew, a live stream of all of your projects as the photos are coming in, as if it was an Instagram feed. So from a managerial standpoint, CompanyCam can help you there as well. But more importantly, it gives you the ability to protect your organization while documenting and keeping everything nice and neat. So we've got a really special offer for you. If you go to CompanyCam.com/dominate, not only will you get your 14-day free trial, but you're also going to get the first 2 months 50% off. So again, head on over to CompanyCam.com/dominate, get the app, and I'm sure you're going to love it. And we're back. So where were we? Okay. We were talking about, obviously most of us provide a lot of different services, right? So how should a website generate? You keep talking about optimizing for conversions, right? So how do you take a website that offers various services and drive that traffic to the right channels?
That's a really great question, because this is another big problem we see when we provide these free marketing audits. Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're not, depending on where you're at with your business and what the level is. A lot of times on the surface, we see this issue a lot where guys have a website. It looks great, right? It's really cool. It's device responsive. And then you scroll down, you click the button that says Our Services. And then that just brings you to a page with a bullet list of everything they do. That's wonderful if I found your website and I was already on your website and I already found it, but Google's not going to find you that way. So you're offering multiple services.
Right.
To not go down into the weeds of the technical details of it, you have to create that content. Okay, so above the fold, typically when you look at one of our clients' websites that we build, we obviously the first question we ask is what services you provide. So above the fold, we're going to list that stuff, right? You're going to have your logo up at the top left. You're going to have a clickable phone number on the top right with your 24/7 emergency. A lot of times you're going to have a hero banner, kind of gives you a little bit of company culture, maybe a shot of you and your team that says whatever your keyword of your business is, professional property damage restoration contractor in X city. And we like to sneak in right below that before you have to scroll, and we make sure that it fits. We just, put an icon for each one of the services you provide that link to, and this is the key that you need to catch here, a specific service page that's based off the service that you want to rank for on Google, right? So if you look at Google like a librarian, and you hand them a piece of paper that says water, fire, mold, all these different things on it, reconstruction, kitchens, cabinets, flooring, blah, 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 they're going to be like, where the hell do I put this, right? And that's normal, right? It's your homepage. That's your silo. That's your hub of all your information. But within that homepage and what you want your strategy to be as far as your content plays, you need to have a specific page built with the right keywords for every one of the services that you want to rank for on Google. Okay. And it has to be written to, like to where a fifth grader can just look at it, turn away and say, oh yeah, they do water damage restoration in X city. Okay. So you want to have at least the rule of...
Yeah, and just real quick, because this is a really cool tool. The Hemingway app is an amazing tool, which is free to access. If you just Google like Hemingway writing app or whatever the case may be, if you want to like see how well your writing does and how friendly it is and how readable it is, and even how like search engines respond to it, you could literally take even like a social media post, which is a good practice to do because most people just take their phone and they just randomly write. Just pop it into the Hemingway app and you'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Like I could break this up, make it shorter, make it much more user friendly. Like that's a really cool app that we use quite a bit when creating content, just to make sure that we're getting our message across the right way.
That's huge. We've used Hemingway. I mean, at the end of the day, just to be as simple as possible, you just need it to be very simple and concise. You have to remember what Google's looking for is they're looking for relevancy. And so a rule of thumb, a couple little quick things on that, the hacks here. Have your homepage built to where your important information is above the fold. Make sure people aren't going to typically read about you. They're finding a restoration website. They probably need property damage, so they're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time looking at, hey, we're the number one choice for blah, blah, blah in your city. That stuff's important because you're putting those keywords on the homepage. But on your service pages, right, you need to make sure you have at least 500 words of content that's keyword rich, right? And there's a ton of tools out there to develop what keywords are the most high ranking in your industry. We actually have I think there's a PDF on our website or something like that. You just download, we'll send you an Excel file with all the keywords that you can at least from the minimum concentrate on. In my book, I give you a couple tools that you can use to try to develop those. But at the end of the day, you really just if you want to rank for water damage restoration in Miami, Florida, then you need to have that content written just like that on your website that talks about why, what you do, the process, 500 words of relevant content to that so Google knows where to file your business. And with all the backlink work that you do and all the stuff in between the 200 ranking factors, the hope is that over time that page will rank when somebody queries that question, or looking for water damage restoration in Miami. So separate service page for each one of your services, 500 words of content on each one that's keyword rich, and then all the stuff in between for SEO is going to make there. But you're not even gonna scratch or sniff page one unless you have that there, right? So even if you have a really dope homepage with the right content on it, there's only so much room on a homepage that you can put stuff before it gets a little bit crazy.
Right, which kind of leads me to like one of my biggest recommendations when it comes down to, first of all, we could break this down like quite a bit. Number one, we're talking about a website, right? And then there's always the debate between a website and a landing page, a very specific landing page with very specific language. So there's the argument to be made that you should have either subdomains, let's say, for example, residential.companyname.com. And that is where you're driving traffic for all of your residential type verbiage, right? Very, very specific. Or you could do companyname.com/residential. And then that's kind of got its own little thing, right? Tons of ways to skin that cat. But one of the things that, that I talk about quite a bit is what's the best way to keep somebody on your site? Because bounce rates are real and they affect your organic rankings. And what a bounce rate is, meaning if I go to your website and I click, let's say, for example, I do, emergency water mitigation, Tennessee, whatever that search term is, I hit enter. Google gives me back a list of websites that they think, hey, this might be of interest to you. I click on it. All of a sudden, immediately I click back to Google and I do another search. Google all of a sudden just log that and says, hey, you know what? This wasn't that relevant. This person didn't really stick around. So we're not going to rank this anymore. But now what's the biggest secret for you to be able to rank or at least keep somebody's attention a little bit longer? Guess what? Yeah. That's video. So the example that I always give is when you're at a networking event and somebody says, hey, Ben, what do you do? Right? They're asking you, what you're saying is, hey, look, what I do is A, B, and C. But before I get into all of the details as to what I have the ability to do for you, let me ask you, what brings you to our website? Now, this is a very simple, I don't want to say easy, but it's a very simple strategy to implement. And that is to have above the fold, after you've already have like this optimized landing page and or website. Let's just pretend that you want to go with the traditional website with all of your services, and which is basically a digital brochure. All of a sudden you put in a video that is an interactive video and you say, hey, this is so-and-so, this is who we are, this is what we do. What products and services is it that you select your journey type of deal, right? So now all of a sudden, if this is residential and commercial, well, now guess what? Now you've captured somebody's attention, at least for the time being, right? So now all of a sudden, if you've got a lot of commercial content, but I'm a residential guy, and I'm like, oh, well, no, residential, boom. And you click on that, and then all of a sudden it takes me to that residential page that you were just talking about. And I'm welcomed with yet another video speaking specifically to my wants and needs. Well, that's a very different conversation. And more importantly, how much of the competition is doing that, right? So do you believe in that strategy? And then number two, why aren't more people using that strategy?
I agree. Video is one of the most untapped means. I love video. I started my agency doing video and doing commercials and doing branded entertainment style. That's where I kind of got my feet wet into marketing. And then I realized, what real people, really needed. And there wasn't, there's still this apprehension about getting on camera and stuff like that. So from what you just mentioned would be like an ideal situation, right? But we all know the reality of this is, guys have a hard time soliciting for Google reviews, let alone let me just make a video and do all this interactive stuff. So if you have the time, you have the wherewithal to do that, by all means, you should do that. You just got to be careful. You don't want the video to kind of overtake the site, if somebody definitely is coming there, because they usually have an immediate need. But if you can just at the minimum record a video talking about who you are, your company culture, that would be the homepage. Every one of your service pages have a video about your water damage restoration, what to look for, what you do, what makes you different, what homeowners can do, providing value. You're going to kill it. So not only are you positioning the written content, but 9 times out of 10 people are going to watch a video versus read something. I'm guilty of it. I mean, that's just the way we are. We live in a microwave society. So if you 100%. Can, so Rico, I always try to start with the simple and then build off of that, because in our experience, it's hard to even get the simple stuff down right? So I want to get really good at one thing and then we move to the next. But man, in a perfect world, having a video and having a lot of video on your website is going to move the needle for you quite a bit, not only from a ranking standpoint, but from a conversion standpoint, because people are going to get to know you, right? You have to build, we're building trust here. 100%. You mentioned we're in the sales business, right. The restoration contract, you're in the sales business. You have to build trust. You're going into somebody's home. They're already pissed. They're already very sad. There's this devastating thing that's happened to their home. And now they're bringing these guys in and they hear all this crazy crap that goes on between the insurance adjusters and these restorations that are going to leave them in this instant. Understanding who you're talking to and why we go back to the first couple of minutes we were talking is paramount, right? And then addressing their concerns, their pain points. And if you could do that with video, you were just setting yourself up even better. And I think the apprehension comes from the obvious, people don't want to be on camera, but people just I don't think people really understand, and especially contractors. And this applies to not only just restoration contractors, but any of the home services. Building that trust and then getting to know your company, there's something to that. Your brand is your business, right? So they see you're talking to them, you're breaking that barrier right out of the way. You got to remember, they're already kind of pre-qualified. If they came to your website from a search engine, they're already a little bit warm of a lead. But now they see this video and like, I want this guy coming to my house, right? I know this guy's not going to show up and screw me over.
Right. Or what's even better, they don't call, they don't pick up the phone, and they don't call because they say right then and there, disqualified for whatever reason. Doesn't like my haircut, doesn't like the fact that I wear glasses, doesn't like, the fact that I have tattoos. Cool.
100%.
Not my client, not my
100%.
customer. Doesn't waste our time. It's an amazing way to attract the right people, right? And because again, all things created equal, and this is something that I've said quite a bit, like all things created equal, if you've got two competitive companies with the exact same presence, with the exact same service, the exact same price point, the only difference is either the visual or the delivery of the salesperson. Ultimately, someone's going to make a choice and be like, I like that person a little bit more. And they're going to get my business, right? That's just the nature of the beast. So there's so many things that you can benefit from, not only from qualifying, but also disqualifying,
and just to
your
jump
people.
onto that as well. No, I agree with you 100%. The other thing that you guys, hey, here's another hack, everybody. Let's say you're not comfortable being on camera, but you're really good at getting reviews. Get somebody to give you a video testimonial and put that on your homepage, right? You could talk about how great you are till you're blue in the face. Nobody gives a shit.
100%.
But when somebody else is telling you how great, or telling the people how great you are, that means something, right? It's just like Google reviews, right? You could be the number one on Google for thousands of keywords. You're every search term you can think of in your industry. And then when they go look at your Google business profile, when you pop it up and you've got nothing but shitty reviews that are all hitting those pain points. Hey, these guys showed up, they ruined my floor. They were late. They didn't show it. They overcharged me. That, all these different things that people are afraid of before they pick up the phone. You're taking the red tape down before they even pick up the phone to call you or not call you. Which if they don't call you and you have all these stuff in order, then yes, they were not a good fit for you. And you got to move on, because for every person that doesn't like it, there's going to be 100 that do. So you can't let that stop you from making those little 1% improvements, whether it's video or your content play on your site.
I love it, man. I mean, there's so many, when we start talking about marketing and we start talking about the digital space in and of itself, it's like, it's almost like an ever expanding universe, right? There's more and more social media platforms. There's obviously something to be said about blogging. There's something to be said about guest blogging. There's the video component. There's, do you post it on YouTube? Do you post it on Facebook? Do you post it everywhere? Like, there's so many things, and I can totally, right. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. You should be everywhere. And there's like strategies, like very specific strategies that are actually pretty simple to use to help you take what they call basically pillar content, one big piece of content, chop it up, and then reuse that over and over and over again for all sorts of different social media channels that can get you months and months of content, as so long as you're not taking the exact same piece of content and producing it everywhere on the exact same day. Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but there's like so much, right? There's so much that it can definitely be overwhelming, and and also the landscape is consistently changing, right? So, but the point is, once you get into the game and you realize, at least for me, as a business owner, as someone who's looking to grow their business, once you start getting that wheel turning of saying, hey, how can I get my message out there? How can I harness social media? How can I harness SEO? What other marketing ideas? All of a sudden, the juices start flowing. You start to see all of these unique patterns. And then most people, in my experience, fall in love with the process because, and again, there's something so empowering for a business owner who's never been able to produce a lead to take a couple of weekends, just a couple of weekends, read a book, start there, read a couple of blog posts. Instead of watching, whatever your favorite episode is, or take a Sunday off of football, like, I don't know, just do research on SEO on YouTube, free university, whatever. The moment that you get involved and all of a sudden you can get your phone ringing with one lead that you produced, that's an amazing feeling. Like that's like, an addictive feeling. So my thing is like, be that student, right? Just be that student, learn. And more importantly, if you learn it, and you don't want to do it, you're going to have much better results if you decide to hire a marketing agency, right?
Yeah, you're going to eliminate the biggest problems we see is lack of consistency and no processes, right? So you're the guy if you're the guy out there that you're listening and you bounce around agency to agency, give them a month, they don't give you the leads, or they might have, and it's not your fault. You're mismanaged expectations. A lot of these companies out there are very sales focused. They're going to tell you whatever the hell you want to hear, and they're going to get their foot in the door. And if they get you for a month, great, they're on to the next one, right? So education is paramount. And if you're like Rico, like you just mentioned, if you're the guy that you fall in love with it and you want to do it, and I think we spoke about this before a couple of weeks ago, then do it. You should. The sky's the limit. I mean, there's not a lack of education. There's not a lack of resources out there to do any aspect of your business. There's accounting and bookkeeping. There's so many nuances with that, but you should know it before you hire a bookkeeper, or you're going to end up like the prototypical guy in a movie that gets ripped off by their accountant or something like that. I think there's a Tim Allen and Kirstie Alley movie where they end up having to go hide out in an Amish community. So if you want to avoid that, learn a little bit about QuickBooks before you go out there and learn the billing. But it's just like anything else. You have to fall in love with the process, because every restoration business owner's goal out there is to get as many leads as they can. So what separates the winners from the losers is not that goal, because you have the same goal. It's the process and the education and the value that you're providing to your clients or your target clients, and understanding how that looks, understanding what the data is supposed to look like is the only way that you're going to understand whether or not you're doing the right thing with marketing or your agency is doing the right thing, right? Sometimes phone calls isn't the only thing. Sometimes how much organic traffic doesn't make a difference because your phone's not ringing. So understanding who you are, who you're trying to market to, and who you have bringing in-house are like fundamental. And if you're not doing that, you need to, like you said, pick up a book, watch YouTube videos. There's so many free resources out there. I make a video literally every single day with a little marketing tip. I run webinars on teaching you this stuff and just showing you what to look out for, because it's a pet peeve of mine. I hate the fact that there's so much ambiguity in this world, and in this landscape of digital marketing, there's a lot of predatory companies out there that just really make our jobs a lot more difficult, right? Because you already are coming up pretty pissed off.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is like, it's easy to go ahead, and most SEO companies do this. Most agencies, digital marketing agencies do this. They, at the end of the month, they send off a pretty generic report, and it's filled with all of these errors and warnings and this and that and all of these suggestions. And like, you're like, I don't know what this is. Like, if you just never really spent any time, and it's kind of on purpose, right? Because a lot of them are saying, oh, well, if we just confuse them with data that they may not understand, we can go ahead and stretch this out another month, because we could always say, hey, look at how many, warnings we have on your, technical SEO. So we need to fix this. You know what I mean? So like, even for from a customer perspective, right? Just like you want to be the best owner, just like you want to be the best tech, you also want to be the best customer you can be. So if you're like, hey, I know myself, I don't want to have an in-house team, I don't want to go ahead and learn this stuff myself. Like, I don't want to be in the trenches doing this stuff because I'm just not passionate about it. Cool. But at least know enough about it to where you could audit either an inside team or an outside company, because guess what? It's your responsibility. If you're spending money for your company, it's your responsibility that you're getting what you're paying for. It's your responsibility as a business owner to make sure that you're going to get an ROI. Well, how do you know that? You can't take anybody's word for it. You have to look at the data and then make an educated decision. So taking the time out, and what's crazy for me is every single year, everybody in our industry goes out and gets an additional IICRC certification. They get their continuing education credits. They do all of this, and they've got this great pride in their master designation in whatever. Dude, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are. If no one can find you, if you cannot make your phone ring, if you cannot convert your visitors to an actual sale, you could be the best guy in the planet or company in the planet, and guess what? Doesn't matter. You're still going to have skinny kids, right? So like, I think Zig Ziglar talks about skinny kids, right? But yeah, so like, having that understanding of the data, it all starts there. So education is key. Pick a poison, do it yourself, learn, or find a really good organization that is very transparent with their process, That's key number one. And then that they actually feel comfortable saying, hey, look, this is what's real. This is not a fly-by-night miracle pill that tomorrow you're going to have all of these great calls coming in. We see all of this. We see the ads. I'm sure you get them as well. We're like, guaranteed 90 leads in the next 3 hours. And you're like,
it's no different to me than seeing the ad. It's no different to me. Those are than seeing the ads that say, take this pill and you're going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. I can't overstate that there's no such thing as a magic pill, right? And we're not perfect, right? We're an agency. Right. Our fingers are on the pulse. The algorithm's changing constantly, and it's all about optimizing and it's all about learning. We have to educate ourselves. But if you can be a present business owner, right? You're present. You understand what the big picture is. You understand what the small wins mean. And when you get those analytics in, understanding what the fluff is and what the real shit is, right? One thing you can do, and if you're not doing this, you should implement call tracking into your business. No 100%. Way anybody can hide from that, right? If you're not getting results and you're not getting the phone, but your agency's like, well, look, you got 2 more keywords that are on page 1 or any of this crap, or if they're giving you technical audits, if they're giving you, first guys out there, if you're couple months into an agency and they're giving you technical audits on your website, then what the hell are they doing? they should be SEO is not going to flip a switch. It's not a magic pill, but there should be incremental wins, the 1% every day. If you get 1% better for a year, you're 37 times better than when you started, right? So you got to fall into that and understand what it is that you're trying to extract out of this. You're paying somebody for attention, right? You're paying somebody to get you on page 1 of Google. That takes a lot of time, and you got to make sure that your expectations are properly managed. Ask the right questions, and all of this at the end of the day boils down to what Rico preaches: is educate yourself. Understand what. Educate yourself. There's nobody that's gonna, if you're trusting your agency and you're not doing your due diligence to check, hey, do they have testimonials? Do they have case studies? Are they real? So we don't tell people what they want to hear. We're pretty brutally honest with our clients, even if that means sometimes that making sure that it's not a right fit, right? You have to just educate yourself to understand what the data looks like and understand what it means to win, because there's no such thing anymore. There's a little piece of it still, but there's no such thing as a direct response type of marketing anymore. You've got to touch them and be omnipresent. You got to be everywhere, right? Does Facebook, not Facebook ads, but just posting on your Instagram and your Facebook, is that going to get you property damage? Probably not. People aren't going on Instagram to look for property damage. They're going on Instagram to kill time. But if they consistently see you're putting up testimonials and you're taking that content and you're syndicating it, you're putting it on your website, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, wherever the hell the case may be, you're unescapable, right? Your brand is building. So from a fundamental marketing standpoint, you're checking the boxes in a good way. But then you know enough to know whether you're not getting ripped off or not, right? It's, if you don't understand what it is, a mechanic, they're like mechanics and heart doctors. They can tell you anything they want. And if you don't do your own research,
but like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that sounds good to me. And it's like the deer in the headlights. And then, so that's the key, man. It's just, again, like us as business owners, we have to be lifelong students, right? There's, especially in the marketing age, like the one thing that is consistently changing is marketing, right? How we're reaching people, the media, the tactics that worked 5 years ago probably don't work any longer, right? People do become jaded by the same message, right? So just constantly just staying on top of the changes in the market. So, man, there's so much more that we could like continue talking about. I mean, like you just talked about, call tracking, and we can kind of go into this whole rabbit hole. I do want to like touch on that, because one thing that people I feel fall way too much in love with is their phone number. Your phone number is a means for a customer to get in contact with you. Don't fall in love with your phone number. You should have 3,000 phone numbers, depending on how many marketing messages you have. And a good tool, I mean, and again, there's tons of them. You probably would recommend like CallRail, because they're probably one of the most respected. I mean, that's one that we like. And for every single campaign, if you're doing a mailing campaign, that should have an individual phone number. For whatever reason, if you're doing a billboard, you should be having a tracking number on there, right? On your trucks, different phone number. Business cards, different phone number. If you're doing a landing page, different phone number. Track everything. Track everything, and don't fall in love with your phone number.
That's so great that you said that. And that, guys, like out there, I can't back that up anymore. How are you going to know what is working and what is not working if you lump every single thing together? And a lot of times you are dealing.
And for how long?
And a lot of times you're dealing with multiple.
And for how long?
And a lot of times you're dealing with multiple contractors for this type of stuff, right? You have a PPC guy, you got an SEO guy, you got a Google guy. and they're all fighting with each other, right? And they're blaming each other. And it's like, no, you eliminate all of that. If you're going to send a direct mail, when we used to do direct mail for different clients in our generalist agency, but when you send a piece of direct mail, always have a different number on that. How do you know that they're calling from that direct mail, or somebody didn't just give you, or your SEO guy's killing it and the other guys are sitting on their ass and nothing's happening and you're all kind of lumped together? So 100% CallRail is great, and we've used a few. CallRail, we keep going back to CallRail, but they integrate so well into your WordPress site, which, we can go down a rabbit hole on what type of content management systems. We like WordPress. CallRail is a good one. It's so cheap. Have 100 different numbers if you can. Every little thing you're doing marketing wise, if you really want to be a present business owner and you really want to track your ROI, have a different number for each one of the things, and then there's no escaping the ROI. There's no escaping the value.
Ben, and now this is a personal question, right? Personal question. How difficult is it to get business owners to understand the concept of breaking away from like their initial number? It's pretty tough, isn't it?
Yeah. Right? But you know what? It seems, and this is more lately, it just seems like the lights clicked a little bit more lately. And if you could put it in terms like that makes sense. It's like, we're getting a lot less kickback. It's still tough, but we almost require you to have a call tracking number when you're a new client of ours, when we're building a site from scratch or doing your Google business. And Google, by the way, guys, Google Business Profile, formerly Google My Business, actually has a built-in call tracking feature. So you can actually back that up even further and check that out. And you can have multiple numbers on your profile, but we don't see as much kickback. A lot of times, again, it comes down to the bandwidth of the business owner. But if we are the ones that are managing all the channels that, we can provide for you, then, we do give a pretty comprehensive breakdown of where everything's coming from, because we don't want you to spend money that's not doing anything, right? If you're dumping a bunch of money into Angie's List or something like that, and you have no idea if that money's bearing fruit, we don't want that, because at the end of the day, we're accountable for that. Right. Our success is directly dependent on yours. So it's been a lot less of a kickback than it used to be, maybe even 6 months ago. But if you can put it into terms of dollars and cents,
that's awesome. So for those that are watching and listening, and they're like, "Oh man, this is cool!" Like Ironclad, that's where it's at. Like the guy's fucking like he's hyped, he's ready to go. I like everything he's saying. If they wanted to go ahead and reach out to you, if they wanted to have your company go ahead and do an audit of their digital marketing efforts, like what's the best way for them to follow you on social media, get in contact with you? Like what steps should they take?
Easiest one, you get ironcladrestorationmarketing.com is our website. Like I mentioned before, I record video every single day, so I have a ton of valuable resources for you out there, the DIY guys, or even guys that want to hold themselves accountable to their agency. You can follow us on Instagram, Ironclad Restoration Marketing. Facebook's the same. You may see me peeking in and out of some of the water damage restoration groups, the Restoration Rebels on Facebook and stuff. If you're a complete DIY guy, I know Rico said he's going to drop a link, but I wrote the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors. That's on Amazon. But website, YouTube. I run a podcast called the Restoration Rundown, where we talk about strictly growing your business and the different things that we're seeing. And I try my best to provide as much value, but I try to provide that value in terms that I would understand, because I've been in your shoes before, right? Without having that born and bred, marketing background and kind of jumping into this out of a necessity. I try my best to kind of teach you that. So, if you want to get in touch with us, you need help, check out our website. There's a ton of free resources on it. We have a free internet marketing checklist that you can download. So if you don't want to talk to me, you're not catching my vibe out here, I'm too hyped for you, download our checklist. You got to take it with a grain of salt. The checklist is built for restoration contractors. It's basically from top to bottom what you should be like. Read one line. Hey, do I have a website? All right, check. Is my website have separate pages for each one of my services? Check. So that's nothing. You could request that. You just put your email in. My team will send it over to you in a PDF, and that's a really good way to start. But I will say, I'd love to sell my service, want to help as many restoration contractors as I can. I have a mission to help 1,000 restoration contractors grow their business. But honestly, start with, dip your toes in the water. Start with learning, watch some of my videos, get the book. It's super cheap, and I think it's even cheaper on a Kindle. You could reach out. Sometimes I get author's copies and I send them out for free. Every once in a while I feel happy and I'm in a good mood and I'll send you one. So communication, follow me, LinkedIn. We got all that stuff going on, and every day I spend a lot of time just trying to provide as much value to the industry and try to kind of pull down some of that red tape that these guys are hiding behind with the ambiguity.
Absolutely. And for everybody out there, there are going to be links in the video description as well as in the show notes below. Make sure that you check out Ironclad Restoration and our boy, Ben. It's been tons of fun. Thanks for hanging out with us. And remember, Restoration Dominators, keep it real and always hustle, hack, and dominate. Right. Let's go.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, your #1 resource for tips, tricks, and hacks to help your business grow. Subscribe to our channel and follow us for more Restoration Domination. And follow our host at Rico Garcia Jr. on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.